I just figured, let's get in. I used to do art myself, so I love picking the brains of people who have gone from sketching to computer animation to all other sorts of things, and getting some advice from the entertainers we admire on how to keep this work steady.
Oh, not a problem. Well, it's your show. You start leading how you want this to go.
uh, but it was so funny. I was just like, "Who sent this?" Oh, Barry.
Yeah, I figured you needed to see what I'm talking about if we get around to talking about
No, I
these.
promise we will. But that was beyond courteous of you, dude. It's too kind, too kind. Welcoming to the show, we
Oh,
have
thank
anytime. We got graphics, arts designer, and former designer for both Letterman and Conan. We have Pierre Bernard Jr.
thank you. Thank you.
It's been a minute, my dude. I can't. I think the last time I saw you on Conan, you were in a Harlem Globetrotters skit during the TBS era, and then I was like, "Hey, where'd Pierre go?"
Yeah, actually, I think if I'm right, I could be wrong because I have a spotty memory at times. But if I'm correct, the last bit I did on Conan was as I think Michael Jordan, and they put me through a shredder, and that was it. We can go into that someday. What was going on there? At least my impression of what was done that day. But that day, the fact that I was shredded, I felt had a lot of meaning because I never appeared on the show after that. I don't know why, and I don't think this is the right place to start speculating, but yeah, that's the last memory I have of being a part of that show. And then I think the rest of the time I spent working there, but that was about it. I mean, they were going to Comic Con, leaving me behind. I was the one who told these folks about Comic Con and the whole
Hmm.
comic stuff, and they were going to Comic Con, leaving me in Burbank. I mean, I that hurt the first couple of times, but after a while, I just thought, this is what it is. I don't understand why it's being done. I have thoughts on it, but I thought, that's I just want to do the job. I love what I do. I'm a graphics person. When it push comes to shove, I'm a graphic artist. That's what I trained to do. I went to art and design in New York.
Yes,
And
I saw you were a graduate of Parsons School of Design. You
yeah,
got
and
your
I went to
bachelor's.
Park.
Uh,
Yeah, so art has always been my thing. I mean, when everyone was going out having fun, I was creating. I love creating. I mean, that's my biggest passion. If I am not able to create, I will lose my mind. So I keep saying that way. I don't have any weird habits like doing drugs or smoking or drinking. It's creating. I just sit and ideas come to mind and I got to put them on paper. So that's that's my world. So, when I was being left behind, I guess maybe I don't know what was going on in their mind, but it wasn't, aside from being upset that I wasn't going to Comic-Con, I just was in the office creating. I was creating artwork. I think during that period, now I can say it because I don't work for them, so I don't care. But during that period when they left me behind with the couple of other people they left behind, I would bring a ton of gel pens because my love for gel pens had just started, and I started
jeez.
creating a lot of these portraits with circles. You've probably seen them on Facebook, portraits of people and anime characters
I
and
think
stuff.
so.
Yeah, that's when I started that. I remembered one Comic Con weekend where I was in the office, left behind, and I was working on this very first series, which was of Iron Man, and I did 5 different Iron Mans throughout the ages, from the gray suit all the way to what was current at that point. I think that was 2015 or 2014. I
Ah,
don't remember
jeez.
right offhand. Yeah, it was fun, and that was the beginning of the circle stuff. From that point, I started doing portraits of people I knew, and other anime characters and other comic characters and musicians. And I was just having a ball with that stuff. I really, the circle stuff started back in New York. It was a way of passing time when I was on the phone, which I'm not a big phone person, but when I would be on the phone and people are talking and they're talking, I'd take out a pen and scribble on paper. And one day I happened to be doing circles on the page. When I got off the phone, I'm looking at this and I'm going, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something here. And from that point forward, I kept doing circles. You would see them appear in different things I did back in New York. And I think I even did a few things
That
on
was during
where
the
I
80s.
incorporated circles. Huh?
That was during the 80s.
Yeah, yeah, this was about the no, not 80s. This was in the 90s. This
Oh,
was
okay.
late.
Wait, so when you
Yeah,
were actually
yeah,
finally getting
yeah.
started?
I'm working at Conan. So yeah, I would do it sporadically. And once I moved out here, I started attending these these drawing groups. They're drink and draw. I don't know if you have them out your way, where a bunch of artists just get together at a bar and they just draw the
Kind
evening.
of. Mainly, they just host art shows at different uh, areas, but you're not wrong. It isn't exclusive in every state, like you say, but it is when you see when you know it, when you see it, you know it. Like
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
oh, it's a free for all. Leave your art here, get comments. It's better than having an actual art show because it people are kind of if they're scouting talent, that's a good way to be seen versus begging them, hey, can you come by and buy my artwork, even though you clearly have no interest. It's
yeah.
more fluent, for lack of a better word.
I agree. I mean, for me, I wasn't really going there so much for looking for work, more than just hanging out. And there was one artist, I don't remember her name right offhand, unfortunately, but she looked over at the sketch I was doing at the time and she asked me, why do you always work in circles? Told her, I don't know why, but I know at some point I'll figure this out, why I'm attracted to him. I'm just attracted.
My
But lo
life's
and
kind of
behold,
going in circles as it is.
yeah, but, 3
Literally.
years ago, it finally came together. I started creating these patterns, these seamless patterns, because 'cause I've always had an interest in fabric design as well,
Hmm.
and I started doing these seamless patterns using circles, and it all came together. I created some really cool patterns. Some, unfortunately, I can't never really put out there other than in pieces. For example, the Justice League. I'm a huge fan of the Justice League Unlimited,
Hmm.
and I started doing portraits of the different characters. You've probably seen them on Facebook as well. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green
Yes.
Lantern, The Flash,
Oh
individual
man.
portraits. Those images are actually, I started them as pen and inks. Then I redid them as vector. So
Yep.
the idea is that I want to have the entire Justice League Unlimited team to print on a huge blanket, and I recreated the logo as well, the original Justice League logo, not the old school logo from the 60s. I recreated that logo as well, all in circles. It looks insane, but it's the kind of stuff I can't really put out there because it's not my property to use that way. So it kind of sucks, and no one will ever see that stuff.
Damn.
Yeah,
Ah,
but yeah, so yeah, the circles, I did the circles, then I started doing huge canvases during COVID with the circles, and now I've found my way going into these books, doing puzzle books.
hey. So, why did you think you were open to that kind of transition?
uh, why do I think I was open to it?
Because
I
some people don't like uh mixing up their different art styles, and others are open to it as long as they get the creative freedom.
I think for me, the way it works, it's whatever feels good. I remembered a while back, I was doing these YouTube videos with a couple of coworkers. This was around the transition time of
Hmm.
our show when we had just came to LA. we lost the Tonight Show, and
Mm.
there was that window of time where we weren't sure what was happening with us. Then we got the Conan show on TBS. But there was that little window where a handful of us, we were going around, told them I wanted to do some videos. And a couple of them were excited about it, said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's shoot some stuff around the thing. And you could kind of do that recliner rage thing. And I said, we'll do it as long as it's fun.
Nice.
The moment it's no longer fun, I don't want to be part of it. And I think that's my approach
Fair
to
enough.
my art as well. As long as what I'm creating is fun, I'm going to dive into it. And if it takes me into a direction that's different or odd or unrelated, I will go with it as long as it's fun. If it's not going to be fun, if I'm not interested or it's not catching my attention,
There's
I'm
no
not doing
creative
it.
momentum. There's
Yeah,
no. It's not worth it.
I mean that. I think to a certain degree, that's that is what happened when I worked at Conan in New York. When I started that job, I was working at the time at Prudential Securities part time,
Oh
doing
wow.
doing business graphics, and every day going to work, I worked at the seaport in New York at Prudential Securities. I would wear suit and tie. I mean, that's how I came into the office. I- you know, it's a financial company, so the bulk of that company is how people are presenting themselves.
Right.
Women are wearing suits, men are wearing suits. Everyone,
And at the
everyone.
end of the night, you're having to go into
Yeah,
goofball mode, and you're like, oh,
well,
but I got to get it
the
together.
point. No, the point I'm going at is that when I was hired into that art department, I came in. There were a couple of people who came to work dressed well, and then there were a couple of artists came in. They were wearing jeans. They, the shirt open. They were
Mhm.
casual. They weren't nothing wrong with that, but I just felt coming into that environment. I as an artist, and I don't know if you've encountered this. You said you're an artist.
Well,
I
I used to.
found
I've lost the ability, but
you don't lose it.
I
You, yeah, it's just
I
off.
can. Okay, so you're right. I can storyboard, but I can't draw near as good as I used to when I was growing up, where I was doing like caricatures of popular Saturday morning cartoons. But
I, I'm willing to bet if you pick up a pen, it'll take you a couple of days.
I'm pretty bad.
It, it's
I don't,
it,
I don't know if it's just the interest isn't there or but I put it into different elements. Like for instance, I love to edit this podcast and
right.
make the graphic promo and everything. But
I would say I look at art skills like a superpower. It
oh,
doesn't
okay.
go away. It doesn't go away, man. You need to exercise it, but it doesn't go away. Your skills are there. The moment you allow yourself to exercise it, you'll be amazed. You'll be an X-Man.
It's very super.
But going back on the other thing I
Anyway,
was
sorry.
mentioning before I forget my trail of thought, I started going to work every day with the suit and tie,
Hmm.
and I started going to Prudential with the suit and tie. The people who were coming in casual started noticing that, and they noticed something as well, that the staff started treating me different than how they treated them. There was a level of professionalism that came my way that wasn't coming their way. So
Mm.
it didn't take long for them to figure it out. And before you knew it, that entire department started coming into work with ties on the neck and, you know, presenting themselves
They
in a
had
certain
to
way.
one
Yeah,
up you or be on your level. You're like, well,
exactly. So, I felt good about that, that uh, my present created that. But the reason I did that is because when I first started were doing graphics, I started out as a storyboard comps in an office. Prior to that, I used to do comic lettering. But I noticed
oh
as artists, we're not respected much.
no,
The companies know that we love what we do, and they don't look at us as professionals. They look at us as a bunch of people who are having fun doing their hobbies. So
Hmm.
I think how you present yourself to these folks when you go into a job is very important, very relevant, especially if you're new. I think,
I think you're
unfortunately,
right. I think a lot of people assume, hey, you're an entertainer, therefore you're having too much fun. I
yes,
gotta gatekeep or I gotta boss you around. And it's like, well, when you kill any amount of fun, you're not gonna get any interest in doing the job well. Like, there's a difference between I'm having fun doing what I'm doing versus I've been slacking off and completely off topic and procrastinating on the job at hand. You know?
exactly.
And they seem to
Exactly.
think because you're laughing and enjoying yourself in 20 minutes, 40 minutes, oh, you're off topic. And it's like, no, I'm just
Not to
joking to set the mood while I set up this new graphic art work and get all the pencils, stencils,
Not to mention, they take that as an opportunity to underpay you.
bingo.
Yeah. So anyway, the long story where I'm going with this
And then
whole
they
thing
wonder why
about this
it's not
food.
good because
Yeah.
you didn't pay me what I was
I-
worth.
I- So when I started with Conan, going back to Conan, I was working with Conan part time and still working at Prudential. So the people at Prudential knew me a certain way, and at Conan, one day someone approached me. I don't remember if it was a writer who approached me on this, but they wanted me to be in a bit at the time. And up to that point, they had me in an office on the second floor at NBC, and
Right.
it was an office way away from the staff because the staff was somewhere on the ninth or 10th floor. I had no contact with anyone because my way of functioning was I wanted to be seen as a professional. I come in, do my work. I don't gossip with people. I don't get
Right.
in with
Get in,
people.
get out.
Yeah, I told the woman who hired me, the lead artist, this is who I am. I am just focused because they had just come off of the whole Letterman debacle and nonsense and stuff. So I was focused. I came in, I said, I'm gonna do my job. I don't want to get caught up in your politics here. Do my job, go home. So one day, someone approached me about doing a comedy bit on the show. And first, I wasn't sure about it. Then they explained it to me. And then my brain was like, oh God, I don't know if I want to do this. Basically, they wanted me to hold one of these cases for watches and dress up in a jumpsuit and stand on the corner of Rockefeller Center for a
Ah,
shoot.
jeez.
And I'm like thinking, I don't want to do that stereotypes thing. That's crazy. The people I work with at Prudential, they're gonna see that. I don't want to be seen that way. But
Hmm.
then I don't know what it was. I don't remember if it took a little while or what, but somewhere in the back of my head, something said, you know what, Pierre? Get out of your comfort zone. Do it.
Take
Just
the
do it.
challenge.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. Have a laugh at yourself. Just do it. And I did it. And before you know it, a couple of other things came up, and I did a couple of other things. And lo and behold, you know where that all led. I think
Hmm.
within a year or two, the recliner rage came up. I'm like,
Yes.
I
Great.
look back
Great
on
skit.
all of this, and I'm thinking it was all probably because of that one moment in time. Here I was thinking I was invisible to everyone because I was just keeping to myself in my work zone. But yet, I guess Conan and the writers knew of my existence. I guess because they must have asked who's doing that work. And
Because I
they must
mean,
have,
they had other people too, like Jimmy Vivino and
yeah. So
Aaron Layard from the Clueless Gamers segment,
I
and
don't,
so
Aaron wasn't there yet. He wasn't
oh
there
okay,
yet. Yeah, no, I'm talking about at the beginning, first year.
jeez,
Yeah, I was there at the very beginning with this show.
93.
So I wasn't I had not known people knew of me working in there. I was under the impression I was just doing work down there and no one knew I existed outside of a head writer, head artist, I mean, lead
Right.
artist. And they knew of me somehow, and they knew enough, someone knew enough to come down and present this idea to me and asked me to do it. And I'm so glad in hindsight that I had the ability in my head to say, yeah, it was all yes, because I know a lot of my coworkers over the years were asked to do different bits, and
Hmm.
a number of them turned things down. I happened to say
Yeah.
yes when mine came up, and it took me where it took me. I mean,
Yeah, that's where I mainly remembered you. You were in the skits, even though they said, "Hey, but he's also the graphic arts designer." I'm like, so
yeah. So I look back on that, and so I guess to 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 sandwich all of this, when I was saying earlier about having fun, it's important to me. Every year asking how do I transition from one art thing to another, and what's going on there. It's all about having fun. If
mhm.
I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. If I'm having fun and doing something different seems like it would be a challenge, and it might take me out of my comfort zone a little, but still have fun with it, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do something crazy or something that's offensive, but
Mhm.
my goal is always to have fun in my career. That to me is important, because in the end, God knows, and I will say this for every employer or future employer I have, I know you all will always underpay me. So the
Yes.
one thing I feel I should have, at least from your job, is fun. I should be able to enjoy that job. It shouldn't be a misery to do that job, because if it's a misery, maybe I shouldn't be doing it, even though I might need money. I just, that's my thinking. And I know a lot of people will hear that and go, well, there are times you don't have the choice. You just have to suck it up and do the job. And I agree, I get that. But I gotta find a way to make what I
Got to put a
do.
number on it after a while.
Yeah, because if you don't, you're gonna lose your mind. You're gonna go crazy.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
no,
that's a
that's a good
long-winded
point.
answer.
No, that's a good point because I they kind of had everyone do all kinds of things, and after a while, sometimes you're just like, I don't really want to wear that many hats.
Yeah.
uh, Altogether, so again, you already touched on some great points on. In fact, you answered pretty much most of my questions before we even started, which was you were up to the challenge, and then after a while, it was like, well, now I want to do this, and now I don't want to do that. So how about I do that
Right.
this way? And just I'm giving you. So this was very inspiring to me because I have just in recent years done therapy, just good things, just setting goals and everything, seeing why I was angry at stuff that's not worth being angry about. But uh, one thing I think everyone has seen in every therapy session is the assertive communication, and you kind of did that here, where yeah, I can't give you this, but I can give you that, so that's technically a win for both you and me. So uh, why do you think it's so hard though, after a while, to just kind of compromise when, like you say, it's not you're not getting what is worth your time and your money, but at the same time, you kind of want to do this, and at the same time, you're kind of still getting a few notes that aren't to your liking. What do you think every artist? What's a unwritten rule that every artist should live by?
The unwritten rule every artist should live by.
Hmm.
Uh, I think there would be two. One is personal, which is goes back to what you're doing should be fun. If you're not having fun with it, don't do it. The other one should be in the business world, give the people what they want. If you're working for an employer and they need something or they want something, you
Love that.
have to rise up to the occasion and give it to them.
Mm.
There are times where their design aesthetics are not up to par, and you
Mhm.
might try to correct them or guide them gently in the right direction.
Yeah.
But push comes to shove, you have to learn to drop your ego and give them what they want or close to what they want, because quite frankly, they're paying for it.
Hmm.
They're not paying you.
No.
And I know this might sound like a contradiction, but it's not. They're not paying you to have fun. They're paying you to give them a product. They have a vision, just like you would have a vision with what you create. You would not like someone
Bingo.
coming in and re-editing your vision.
Yep.
Your employer is hiring you because they have a vision. You have to work within that parameter and try to give them to the best of your ability their vision. Have fun with it.
Yep.
Find creative ways to have fun with it, but in the end, give them what they want. I think those are the two things I would say, the two rules.
Lovely. And uh, so you've studied all kinds of graphic art design and Adobe, and given how we're talking '90s versus today, where I mean, my father can speak to this because he's done marketing design,
Right.
and he noticed a lot how you had to keep updating your portfolio and show various clients, hey, you might be able to do this for less or do this even on your own, like create your own website. Yeah, nowadays you can just go to Wix or whatever, and boom, there's a website in 2 minutes. But um uh what do you think artists are mainly having to struggle to illustrate, no pun, that
Right.
hey, you can't do this on your own, like you do legit need at least like a consultant fee from me, like you can try and sidestep this and take a
Are you
shortcut, but
are
it's
you
just going to look
talking
cheap.
about are you talking about from the client's perspective?
Yeah, yeah. You selling yourself to the clients is showing, hey, you might know about this and know other people who can do this, but it's just going to look cheap and unfinished.
You
You
know,
really
that's I think I follow what you're asking, and that falls along an area where it's gray.
Mhm.
And for example, I say, what if I was a client? I have an idea. I want to do these books. I don't know how to put this book together. I need help, but I have a clear vision on what I want. And I
Mhm.
think what you're saying is I'm sitting there with all sorts of software trying to put this thing together, and you're as the professional approaches me and says, well, that doesn't look that good.
Right.
Let me Yeah, you shouldn't be doing it. I, on the other hand, have the degree and I should be doing it.
Yeah. You
That
have
where
the
you go?
credentials. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the pro that might have worked back in the I would say that probably worked at the beginning of the 1900s all the way straight through 1980s and maybe mid 90s. But because of the way technology is developing now, I think us as creatives, we don't have a lot of and I know I'm going to be hated for this one, but we don't have a lot of room, a lot of Florida. I don't even know how to phrase what I'm about to say.
Would you
We don't have a
say
lot of standing to argue that point. The reason being, AI is about to change everything.
it's
It is
awful.
changing everything, and it's about to change things. And going
I felt you guys' pain. I really did. And it wasn't just because we were all the consumers were getting annoyed at having to wait for union disputes and everything. Like I even got on a panel and I got pretty annoyed. Like we were all kind of unanimous saying, even if it were to be a good thing, it's ultimately a bad thing because it's not ready for use. It's going to kill jobs. And there was one guy who was so adamant, oh, it's not bad. I'm like, it's pretty bad.
you know, it's one of those things where I'm fascinated with it and it's interesting, but on the other hand, I can see how it's going to fundamentally
Yes.
change our society and literally change all sorts of businesses. I can see it from the graphic end because this is what I do, and I can see how it's going to affect
You're looking
my
ahead
my
as
work.
opposed to waiting for oversaturation of something or for it to all go downhill. You're looking at, and you've
At,
seen stuff. We have seen stuff like this before. So
I mean,
his,
what do you call it?
I mean,
Couple of
stuntmen thought their jobs were going to go kaput when people were using computer graphics. I mean, makeup artists, same kind of thing, but more than just entertainment. I mean, kind of what we hit it at on websites earlier. People thought, hey, I can just have, a computer, you know,
design
create
it.
that for me instead of hiring 5 people, or a
Yeah,
team of guys.
I don't know if you've seen the video yet. I saw it on a YouTube channel, commercial for armor something. It's a line of clothing, men clothing,
Yeah,
shirts.
yeah. Armor clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a black and white commercial, and at the time, the people who were airing it were saying, I'm looking at this video and it's well done, and I'm thinking to myself, what is the angle? What's wrong with it? Are they going to complain because it's black and white? What was the problem? The problem to them is that the entire thing was done with AI. Literally
Mm,
everything, every shot in that video was
I
AI.
have not
The
seen that,
music
but
was
I
AI.
have seen similar
And
scandals.
at the moment they said that, I re-looked at it and I'm like thinking, and they said it was as if they were reading my mind. I'm thinking, God, a bunch of people were not employed to do this commercial. If this becomes a trend, there is going to be an unemployment here in California on a scale we've never seen before.
And
People
you're
were
in
saying
California now?
when people
Right.
were
After New
screaming
York.
when Uber came along and taxi drivers started losing jobs, they haven't seen job loss yet. I think last year that strike was a problem because
Yeah.
yeah, you want more money, but you're doing on the heel of a technology that's in its infancy and it's only going to get better. It's not going to get worse. I'm of the belief the day AI learns to render hands, it's endgame. It's going back
Mm,
to what you were mentioning before about the employer, or we were talking about where the
the money
employer
man
creating stuff,
determines. Yeah.
and you come along and tell that employer, well, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm the pro. Let me handle it.
Yeah.
AI is going to get to that place where you're not going to be able to give them that argument because they're going
Mm,
to be able to plug in a couple of prompts and get exactly what they want on a level and time frame faster and possibly better than what you can give them. And you're not going to have any place to debate. I think they can attempt to slow this down, but in the long run, they can't. And on the other side, this is where I tell you I have mixed feelings. On the other hand, I want this to happen. I want this evolution to happen because, and I
mhm.
don't want to get into politics, but I feel media right now is in the control of a few.
Yeah.
And concern is that what I'm seeing is that a lot of media is being forcibly injected with politics.
TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I'm seeing on top of that, and I think the studios are seeing the problem. They're seeing the kickback, the pushback from the individuals who are complaining about this stuff. The studios are under the mentality that if they keep force feeding you something that you don't want,
Hmm.
eventually you're going to just give in. And now we have AI entering the picture, and I've seen these shorts. Sora is one AI that came along, and it's talking about creating videos and stuff. And
Mm,
I had a debate with a good friend of mine about this. He's telling me how these things are not really creating anything original. They're just sourcing other things and putting them mishmashing and creating. And I agree, that's what's happening now. But 10 years later, 20 years out, this thing might have the ability to actually create something. and it may not take that long. What I'm excited about is the fact that AI is now potentially putting creativity in the hands of the average individual.
Mm,
And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm on YouTube, I like to look up random things, or random things come up on my screen. I saw an animation, a fan animation of the Hulk versus Superman. That would never exist in reality, but someone took the
right.
time to create that a couple of years ago, and it looks incredible. The Hulk versus Superman. It's incredible, and it's like 5 minutes. I would pay to see that movie. It's insane. Another fan thing that I saw that it blew my mind was Samurai Champloo. Someone did a live
Yes.
take on that. I'm
Classic
like,
anime.
holy smokes, this is incredible. I would, if I had the money, I would give these folks money and let them create, you know, episodes, knowing that it'll never air. I'll just hand them out at Comic-Con to give them to other fans. I mean, but seeing that kind of level of dedication going on before AI, my thinking is now AI is in the mix. Those same people will have this available to them. I can't wait to see what they're going to do. You know, as
Hmm.
excited as we might be about Deadpool and Wolverine next month, imagine these folks creating their own Deadpool Wolverine movie. I mean, my mind
No,
is
I that's why I like your geeky takes, because you kind I mean, that's why it was awesome. It was geeky rage, but you were putting it in a way where everyone could understand it, even if they don't follow this kind of stuff. You have it make sense to everybody. And I'm glad that you brought up the whole political thing, because we're kind of getting a mixture of that too, where it is always funny how we get complaints from people saying don't politicize this, and then ironically some of those guys are the same ones politicizing something. It's like,
exactly,
well, you didn't
exactly.
start the fire, but you kind of
Yeah,
did. Now
yeah.
you left the oven on.
I mean,
That's all
again,
for me.
not to stay on this too much because I don't want to create a problem for your channel, but
You're
the
fine.
Star
This is a
Wars
free
thing,
access.
you know, the other 2 days ago, I was sitting down rewatching Star Wars again because all this new stuff that's coming out, I'm like, there was a poster about a month ago of a lightsaber bleeding. I'm like, what the f is this? What is that? And now, now I've started watching some channels and they're reviewing the stuff, and I'm like, my God, this is not Star Wars. What the hell are you guys airing? This. So I wanted to rewatch the movie to see. Maybe I forgot. It was a minute since I saw the original movie,
Every
and
other poster or trailer seems to be left
yeah,
unfinished, but then when you see a movie and you feel like it's also unfinished, then it's even more confusing. You're like,
yeah.
where's the
So
money going?
yeah, so I sat down and I watched the movie, and I watched it, and I remember seeing the clips that people are showing on their online stuff where they're reviewing what's currently airing, and
Hmm.
seeing the original movie. I realized there's a loss of soul going on in filmmaking. People literally have forgotten how to make good movies. They forgot the reason
Yeah.
movies exist. They're so busy putting all sorts of other things into movies nowadays that they forgot the sole reason movies existed was for entertainment. It had nothing to do with anything other than entertainment.
Even before we had cartoons that were essentially
Yeah,
toy commercials, it seems
yeah.
like, I mean,
Even when movies were hand cranked and you had the stills going around in the machine, it was all about just entertaining. You saw a woman dancing or a cowboy swinging, bro. It was for entertainment. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about
yeah.
anything. It wasn't, it was simply entertainment. And I think movies nowadays have lost the ability to be entertaining. And this is why I'm so excited about AI, because my thinking is all these creative folks that I see posting these YouTube shorts online, they're going to have this amazing software now to create stuff, and I know the studios are going to lose their mind. They're going to lose it. They're going to do all sorts of things to try to block it from what do you call it? Adobe is taking the first step. You probably haven't heard. Adobe wants the right to search your computer to look at how you're using their software and decide whether or not you can continue using the
I
software.
have not seen that, but that
Yeah,
also doesn't surprise me, given
yeah,
how they're always sneaky when they do the
yes.
renewal.
I'm thinking this is bad. Then a couple weeks ago, again, the studios are seeing the writing on the wall. Imagine, like going back to the Wolverine Deadpool scenario I mentioned.
Yes.
Imagine if you had a choice. You had a choice between what the studio just produced coming out next month, or you have a choice of a fan made movie that's coming out. Which one would you probably want to lean towards first?
Yeah, jeez.
You know, so
Yeah.
I think the studios are thinking that and they're going, we have to fix this because if we don't fix it, these fans are going to start producing stuff on mass
That's
quantities.
kind of what they did with Star
They're
Trek.
going to expand that independent film market. And
Hmm.
guess what's going to happen next? The theaters who are hurting, they're going to turn around and go, whoa, this stuff is making money. Your stuff isn't helping me. My bottom line, I'm going to go this way. So what
Bingo.
are the studios they're doing now? And it started, I think, with Sony. They just started buying chains of theaters.
Yes, they did.
So now they can control the content that's going into the theater.
They can
I'm
say we don't want to watch your movie. Did you
yes,
see the Star Trek scandal where the
the
fan
lot.
films they were better quality, and then next thing
Yes,
you know, Paramount
yes.
decided, hey, we'll you followed all the rules, but we're taking this down anyway because it means you know our
Bottom line.
franchise is in jeopardy. Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
I see the writing on the wall. There's
yeah,
going to be huge battles going on in the next 5 years, I think, between independent creative people and professionals. Because,
oh yeah,
quite frankly, the moment an independent creates an animated short or using Marvel characters or DC characters or whoever, I'm going to see that. I'm sorry to say, I have no problem, no, nothing. I'm gonna figure out a way to see that because
and if
I
a
know
sequel
it,
feels like a bunch of homages made by
yeah, I know
fans, then it
yeah, it
looks fake. It's like I mean, I'm sure you know when Bruce Willis retired, how he was kind of being manipulated by this production company that had, long story short, tricked the likes of De Niro, Mel Gibson, a bunch of these other guys into doing older crappy movies.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, well, and these guys are still doing it too, and you're just like, Jesus, there's got to be some alternative if you don't want to do a Oscar bait or superhero movie. You know, this can't be
Yeah.
the only company
No,
making indie shit for
my
Saban and Lionsgate and Sony.
again, it goes to what I just said.
Yes, he
I
did.
firmly believe the future of entertainment lies in the hand of the individual creators. I wish I was motivated in filmmaking that I would
There's still
pursue
time.
that, start creating stuff because I have ideas, but they're not fully fleshed out. But I'm hoping people who are real fans who go to comic conventions, they do the comic walk as they call it. You know, they actually buy comic books. They don't go to the store and look at comics and suddenly become instant fans because they saw one comic book.
No.
About real
Yeah.
fans, once they start creating the content, I'm there for them. I'm 100% there for them. And I will support them. Right now, one person who I'm watching intensely, and I telling you, the moment I hear his film is in the theaters, I'm going to line up overnight like we used to do when the original real Star Wars movies first came out. We all got online overnight with our tents and waited for the opening. The
There you
day
go.
Eric July,
That would be
I
the
don't know if
day.
you know who he is, Eric July of Ripperverse. The day he released his movie, I'm going to be online overnight waiting for opening day because I'm looking at what he's doing with his comic book company and I'm just blown away. he did a video short on a
I'm
comic on
seeing it
one of
now.
his
It's the first thing
characters.
that comes up, Eric
And
July.
oh, you seen it? He did an
I haven't
animated
seen it, but
short and he did a live short. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this guy did this on a minimum budget, on a small budget. If he has the money to actually put something together, the studios are going to hurt.
it says a lot.
mean, it's just incredible. And this goes to what I'm saying. When the individuals, us fans, us real fans, I shouldn't say fans because that's used way too loosely these days. But when
Mhm.
us real fans start creating the content, it's going to blow everything away. It's going to change the dynamics of everything. The studios are going to lose their minds because they won't be able to keep up. They're so wrapped up with their agenda of what they're trying to force feed on society. They're not going to be able to keep up with us as individuals who are not interested in that stuff, who just want to have fun. I mean, I don't know if you go to comic conventions, but I know when I go to a
I
comic
went to a
convention,
few. Yeah.
yeah, I go there to have fun. You know, if someone is goofy or someone's doing something goofy, I will turn to the person next to me or they'll turn to me and we'll comment about that and we'll have a laugh and we all get along and we move on. And, you know, I don't know who they were, or they don't know who I was. And no, the bottom line is we didn't engage in politics
No,
or stuff.
no,
Just
nothing distracting.
we were just there in the moment, having that comic nerd out thing, and we enjoyed that moment, and we moved on and went about our business. And I'm thinking that's lacking these days. We're so becoming so and so conditioned to have to walk on tooth and nails about everything and be careful on how you present certain things. And you can draw this, but you can't draw that. You can do this. It's like, it's so much stuff is going on. Whereas real fans, the people who really enjoy this stuff, those rules, we tend not to follow those rules. And
No.
therefore we don't quite fit in. But, you know, again, I'm hoping that energy is going to go towards these AI software, and I'm really looking forward to when these individuals start creating stuff because I'm going to be there for them. I'm going to be one of the loudest cheerleaders, going, "Do it, do it, do it, do it!" You know, like I said,
Do it.
July. I don't know what little I know about him. I'm sure, you know, unfortunately, because of where we are in current age, I know way too much about, or I think I know way too much about his personal views. I don't think that's relevant for me. All I care about is the fact that he loves comics, he gets it, and he's putting it on screen, and I see it, and he does get it. It's just about entertainment. Those shorts that he created,
I
they
think
were,
a lot of people get tripped up by how people are talking. I'm like, I don't care
yeah,
how, if
it
they're not necessarily smart, if they got an idea, let them do it. You know?
let them do it. Yeah, it shouldn't. Creativity shouldn't be limited to your to an individual's political point of view.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Creativity should just be open. Creativity should be fun, and entertainment
Shouldn't be any limit.
Film should be made to entertain. The second your film has a message, that's a documentary. That's not an entertainment movie anymore, and it should not be treated as such. It should be cast aside and move into documentary. I don't have a problem with documentaries. There are tons of documentaries I like. But it should be treated as such. The moment it has a political angle to it, it should not be considered entertainment in its purest form. And I so need individuals to jump on who are really creative that way, who have a skill set I don't have, to see film and moving pictures and to create stuff that will blow me away. I'm telling you, I can't wait. Like I said, I keep going back to that Ripperverse, because after seeing those two things, the live and the animation, my mind is like, if someone can fund him, someone can give him some money to produce a feature-length movie, my God, what this guy will put on film is going to be just mind-boggling. I wouldn't hesitate to say he might be the first billion-dollar independent movie maker out there. I mean,
there's still time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming there are other people out there who are doing what he's doing, but he's the only one that comes to mind, because he, on Facebook, whenever I'm there, I mean YouTube, whenever I'm there, his stuff tends to pop up a lot on my feed, and I started looking at it, trying to figure out why is this coming up. And when I saw those two shorts, I was like, holy smokes.
Nice.
Whatever you might think about the guy, put that aside. Just look at what he's creating on the level of entertainment. And you gotta walk away going, if this guy can produce this on a larger scale, he's about to change the game entirely. There's no question on that.
Let's hope, man. Let's hope.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on this tangent.
Oh, we were talking about just stuff. I mean, career just being in jeopardy, as well as seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and revolting against studios that are being heavy-handed and treating everyone like petulant children.
Right.
A bit of everything, but that's okay. We're a very flexible show, and this has been just good, just kind of meshing our brains together, dude, because, like, you are ultimately hitting the nail on the head. No fun, then there's going to be nothing to show. Like, there's got to be some degree, and if you micromanage, you also don't get anything.
Yeah.
And you've joked about before about other people who've asked you, and you've just been like, oh, just become a doctor. Anything that makes a living. Well, what nowadays, what secondary jobs would you recommend for people who are getting into any degree of art? They're putting stuff on DeviantArt, putting stuff on Patreon, putting stuff on an actual art show, and then, like, doing some painting, or because that's the main hard thing, is getting the bills done on time, and at the same time doing what you want, that you actually want.
From what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong because I'm just hearing stuff, comic book rates, I heard apparently the rates have gone down, or people are not getting paid.
Kind of on Fiverr, they really bastardized that a lot, where you're just like, I'll do that, but that's like 3 people's worth of work.
Yeah. So answering your question on what I would tell people to do, it's a hard call, because I know as an artist, like I said, that's my passion, is being creative. And I want to always be able to exercise that ability. I would lose my mind if I couldn't do that. That said, this field that I'm working in is shrinking, and I cannot pretend it's not. And
Hmm.
I can, unions and everything can come along and try to enforce rules and put regulations in place and stuff. But the reality, it's there, and it's like cold water being thrown at you. AI is here. It's not going to go away, and it's going to get better. And
Yep.
like it or not, particularly for us in the graphic field, it's going to replace a lot of us because AI will give the employer the ability to get what they want, when they want it, how they want it. They're
Bingo.
not going to have to deal with us at all. If you, as an artist,
People are lazy. They don't like to say what's on their mind, which is hard to improve yourself if they don't
yeah.
say
So
what they want.
to tell someone to go into the art field, I'm very reserved about that. You're not the
Mm,
first person to ask me this question, and
correct.
it's hard for me to tell someone become an artist or graphic artist. It's a good business because I'm looking at where this is going. I'm at the right point because I'm heading towards end of career. So I'm looking for the out. This is no
Right.
longer a worry. I'm not starting out, but as someone coming out of
No, that's
college,
fine, dude. I
coming into this business,
I used to
my
be all about
thinking is,
filmmaking, and then I kind of had to take
again,
a break because
but again, with filmmaking, you have all this AI stuff that's coming
hmm
in. And like I said, you have this company, it's a major brand, created a commercial, and commercial that's airing all through AI. It's not going to go away. You can argue it to death. You can insult it however you want. The reality here is AI is becoming a part of what we're doing, and at some point it will overtake what we're doing. What work will become available, I guess, is writing prompts. How good of a prompter you are will probably get you work,
yeah.
but how long does that last before that job is done by the machine? So
Mm,
I don't know how to advise people coming out of school going into graphics, even animators, old
yeah.
school animators who sat around drawing cells and stuff. That's an amazing skill set to be an animator. But now you have computer things that can pop these things out, boom, you got an animation.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you go, well, it's not going to look as good as what I can do because
No.
I can draw hands. Guess what? At some point, that machine is going to learn how to draw hands. That's just the reality. It's not as if it's not going to evolve. The machine is going to evolve. It's going to get better. It's not. So the argument of it can't do, or it won't be, I'm sorry, I can't go with that. So I don't know how to advise someone coming out of school and tell them what fields to go into, because to tell them to become graphic arts is a great business. It was a great business, but it's a changing business now. And I don't know what the work landscape looks like 2 years out. I won't even go 5, because 5 years out, it may not even exist anymore. But 2 years out, I don't know what it looks like. So I can't advise you as someone starting out to say, yeah, become an illustrator or become a graphic. Mention become an illustrator. When I went to Parsons, I wanted to be an illustrator because at the time, the people I was looking at were, and you may not know them, Fuchs, Robert Fuchs, Bob
Robert
P,
Fuchs.
Mark English. Uh,
Oh,
there's a bunch
and
of them.
you'd recommended some other good artists in the past before, such
Yeah,
as Good Housekeeping's Al Parker, as well as the
yeah, Al Parker. Yes,
legendary Norman Rockwell. But
yes.
different industry. We're talking
Yeah.
50s.
So, at the time, I remember as a kid seeing that stuff and going, I want to do that kind of work. So when I graduated from Parsons, I wanted to be an illustrator. Guess what? There wasn't illustration work available, and the Mac was just starting in its infancy. I mean, not the Mac, the computer itself in its infancy. I mean, it was huge things. So long story short, I never got the opportunity to become that type of illustrator. I
Mm,
had to go the graphic route and become a graphic designer because
gotcha.
that was what people were looking for. So, and my point being, right now, if I'm coming out of school and I want to be a graphic artist, I don't know what that looks like because there are less and less work available
College
for
is
people
coming
like
so
me.
unrecognizable compared to what it was a
Yeah,
few years ago.
yeah, the machines are creating a lot of the graphics or supplementing a lot of the graphics, and it's like, where would I fit in coming out of school and competing against this machine that can do what the client wants faster and
Hmm.
cheaper? And
It's
clients are
always cheaper, which
always
often
cheap.
means lesser.
Exactly. So
I
I
don't know how to
kind of
explain to them, hey, you got to put some serious money into it. I'm not
yeah,
saying $1 million, but we're also not saying, 20, it's
exactly.
nothing.
So it's like I don't know how to advise people going forward. I would say good luck. That I think that's the best I can give you
I like
going
that.
forward. Good luck because I don't know what this future looks like for aspiring artists coming out of school. Even fine arts. The fine art market is such a hard fi- fickle market to get into because you can be as good can get, but the only way you become relevant is if you're in the right clique. You know, maybe you're an introvert. You don't want to be
Yeah.
around people. You like to create your stuff. You're really good at what you do, but you just don't want to be around people. You're not you're socially awkward or you're not into presenting your work. You're not comfortable with a portfolio. No one will ever see your work. It's all about clicking and being in the right group and having the right social media and having the right number of people clicking on your stuff. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been on Instagram and I've seen artwork that's amazing and they've only got 3 or 4 likes. And I'm just like, are you serious? Whereas I'm looking at other stuff that really look like it was poop. And they
Yeah.
got thousands of likes. And it's like,
It's exhausting, dude.
yeah, there's no justice here. So I'm telling you, I don't
Oh,
know.
and you did mention some office politics earlier, dude. I've been with people where it's like they're not necessarily going out of their way to pick on the little guy, but sometimes egos really do blind everybody, like to where it's just like kind of that same deal where you're seeing people saying, clap. I'm like, well, clap over what? Nothing got accomplished here.
Yeah, yeah,
This isn't clap worthy.
yeah,
This is I won't tell a lie.
yeah, it's a weird situation to be us as creative people at this moment in time because the business is changing. It's interesting at the same time. It's fascinating to me because I'm curious to see how it's going to all turn out. I don't know if I'll be around to see where this is all going or see where it's leading to because it's going to always be evolving. But it's frustrating at the same time because you look back at the past 10, 20 years, 30 years behind you, and you look at what people were doing, and you're like, I want to do that. That looked like that was fun, that was interesting, but that window is closed. You can't, no one wants that anymore. They want what's in the now, and you have to be able to give them what's in the now, but what's in the now is literally being replaced by machine. So
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's a
it's
mess.
gross.
Yeah, it's a mess. I don't know. I would say the best thing you could do for yourself is figure out a way to make a living and get a
I mean,
passport
when we
to the
started this
country.
podcast, my dude,
Huh?
when we started this podcast, we pretty much within the first year were figuring out, okay, here's what we will never do. We will give ourselves enough time to watch or read whatever we're talking about. If it's book club night versus movie night, we will not make recording a nightmare because it will show. It will always show. If it's chaotic behind the scenes, it's going to show. Not always, but most of the time, you're going to hear us in our voice how we're pressed for time or we're running out of things to talk about. It's bad. So we got to give ourselves enough time, and it seems like that's also the other thing. But we're not giving ourselves enough time to get anything done.
I agree. I agree. I mean, yeah, it's a weird thing to be a graphics person right now, or creative person in general, and try to figure out how you fit into all of this.
I'm helping out a pal now, Carissa Grant. Anytime she's got a fundraiser for her comic book where her husband does all the artwork, I almost always jump on and say, awesome.
Yeah, you have to support independent folks, because I think that's the last. What is the word I'm looking for? That's I don't want to say frontier, because that's the last line of defense before it all goes away.
Bingo.
It's like we, because of our age, we've always known movies existed. We've always known comic books existed, and
Yes.
entertainment in general. But the reality is, a lot of this stuff didn't start existing until around, I guess, 1800s or late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
We happen to be born at a time where we grew up with this stuff around us, TV and all of this stuff. It wasn't always there. And with that mindset, my thinking is, like everything else about this universe, it has a beginning and end. All of this stuff we assume is going to have a long shelf life, but the reality is, I think it's going to end at some point. And I strongly believe we're looking at the end of the film industry because of all the things we talked about. I think they've lost the ability to create what film was all about in its very beginning when it was born, and that's entertainment. They've lost the ability to create entertainment, and therefore it's dying a natural death. And it's a death rattle. Right now they're fighting to hang on, but I think it's going to go away. I think the next line of defense, not defense, the next line then is the independents, the individuals coming out with their own content and entertaining us. And we're able to pick and choose what we want, not based on politics and all the gender wars and all this other stuff, but being able to pick and choose what really entertains us. I think at some point, though, even that might die and go away. And I don't know what will replace it or how that will be replaced. I don't have the imagination to see what replaces this moment in time, because this moment in time will go away like everything else.
Well, I'm glad you brought most of this up, though, dude, because like I get accused of being a killjoy sometimes, and I know I'm not the only one here, but it just gets annoying because I'm like, I'm not saying there isn't going to be any entertainment, but a lot of what I'm seeing just feels generic and soulless. So other than not supporting it, all one can do is just kind of just be like, I guess I'm going back to my old tapes, I'm going back to my old books, because I'm not seeing much creativity here, and it's just leaving a stink. So you're just like, okay, what if there's nothing entertaining about it? I'm just going to stop staring at it, and I'm not going to kill anyone else who's enjoying it in the room. But when they come at you, 5 years later saying that was overrated or that didn't hold up, I'm like, I saw the writing on the wall then. Where were you?
Take this thought for a moment. I don't know the age of Beethoven or I forgot the names, but there was a moment in time when musicians were the entertainment source.
Hmm.
These guys were the rock stars of their moment.
They were
And,
the
and at the
only
moment they exist.
recreation. Yeah.
Exactly. They were the thing. Everyone was waiting for their next hit, their next number, the next thing to come out. But over time, they slowly disappeared. A handful of people kept up with it, but for the most part, that form of entertainment just disappeared off the radar. It no longer was the focus. Something else replaced it, and then next thing you know, we have film and TV and stuff. And it's like, my thinking is, if you look at the past as a way to kind of predict what the future might possibly look like, you can look at what the musicians were doing in their moment in time when they were the it, and no one thought that would go away, and they did go away. And now we just look at it for the sake of nostalgia, and you have a handful who are into classical music. And I look at film in the same manner. It's entertainment. It's like what we've been born into literally had a beginning, and we're in the middle of it, and we're looking at the end. It's literally killing itself because
Hmm.
it's no longer doing what it originally was born to do. It's strayed so far from course. No one wants it anymore. The group of people who are using it becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and there might possibly come a time when maybe 100 years from now, 200 years from now, whoever's around will look back on what we're doing, what we've created as nostalgia, and they will collect our movies and TV shows like we collect classical music.
Lovely.
That's my thinking. And I don't think that's a downer. I just think that's a reality.
No, I mean,
You know?
that's why we kind of do a lot of these chats. We're often just trying to kind of decipher a literal end game instead of just being like do or die or start shit up. We're all trying to kind of find a positive, but it's really hard to look at one when you're seeing a lot of harrowing stuff. And yes, it is true that a lot of people seem to go, "Oh, you guys are Debbie Downers." I'm like, well, it's still hard to be optimistic when you're not seeing much improvement. Like I stopped hanging out at certain networking events because I was seeing some of the same people who were wasting a lot of the same time. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to stop coming to these events because you guys don't really want to get anything done other than hand out your cards, you know?
You know, one of the things I tell people a lot nowadays, particularly I think after my mom passed away, I think it gave. If my dad didn't give me perspective in his passing, my mom definitely did, because up to that point,
That's a good mom.
I understood
Yeah.
death, and I understood the fact that we're born and we die, but I did not get the impact and what that really means until her passing. You know,
Mm,
even though it still upsets me. I do get emotional about it, but
yeah.
for the most part, I've accepted it because I realize this is a part of our existence on this planet, and in the time that you exist on this planet, unfortunately, we're in a society where they're training us to be consumers and follow rules.
We
All of
want to
that,
sucker
but,
you
but,
in
but
instead
all of
of
that put
show your
aside, I think part of life, or the meaning of life, is to enjoy this life and enjoy who you are, and find people who are like-minded on some degree to enjoy their company and exchange ideas and grow from those ideas and create
yes.
something that will hopefully
This is
carry
why we do these
to the
chats.
future.
This
That's
is
all there is. I
yes.
think sometimes people lose perspective, and they're fighting a fight that's not worth fighting, because I saw a great Instagram video a couple of weeks ago where this person posted in a imagine 100 years from now, where will you be? Well,
Boom.
not 100 years, but they said, imagine where will you be in 2021, 24? And at
Boom.
first, you saw that title and you're thinking, but then as you read it, he goes, that's 100 years from now. Where will you be? Obviously, he mentioned you won't be on the planet, obviously, 100 years from now, unless
Yeah.
some weird miracle occurs and you're able to live close to 200 years old. Odds are
Oh.
most of us are not going to be around at 21, 23, 24, I mean. They mentioned in the article, everything that you consider of value will have been gone, either thrown away or gone. At that point in time, it's very likely no one will even know you existed.
Unfortunately.
I thought about that and I thought, they got a good point, because I'm trying to think
It'll be
19.
hard to live because your body will have already accumulated a cancer or
But
other
it's not
incurable.
just that. It's like all the fame and all the stuff that we try
All the
to
stuff that would be
acquire.
appreciated is now
Yeah,
unrecognizable.
think about it. Think about 1924. How many people of importance can you name? There are probably none, if maybe one or two. So
We forgot
100
about
years
it around
forward,
the Dark Ages.
I mean, no matter how important you think you are in this moment in time, no matter how big a celebrity you are going to be unimportant 100 years out. And the way I know that's as a fact, there's another illustrator, Gibson, Charles Dana Gibson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a pen and ink artist. He drew
I'm not.
Conan back
And
in
see,
the
that's another thing lost to history I would love to know
yeah,
more about.
he's from the late 1890s, early 1900s, and he drew pen and ink of women at the time. And one of his models was this socialite. She was very famous, extremely famous, to the point that she had a boyfriend, if I'm remembering the story correctly, either a boyfriend or a husband. She was cheating. And I think it was the husband murdered the lover, and I think he murdered the woman as well, and he was caught. And this was huge news at the time. It made the top half of the New York Times. That's how big this was back in that moment in time. That was the equivalent of, I guess, pick whatever scandal you want in this day and age, but that was a huge scandal. But I barely know all the facts to that and that we're talking about a little over 100 years, but I barely remember or know the details of that case. And we don't even know the fact that it was an illustrator who was involved with this model, and her being involved with two men, and there was a murder. All of that,
all which sounds like a typical Tuesday in today's standards.
It's all gone. It's forgotten. It's part of history. And going back to that Instagram thing, talking about 100 years from now, no matter how big we think we are, I compare it to that. We're not going to be relevant 100 years from now. So my point is, enjoy the moment. Figure out what it is that you're about and enjoy your time. Make it worthwhile. Don't fight fights that are not worth fighting.
Yep.
Be creative. Creativity is an amazing thing, because creativity is what all good societies are built from. I think the way you fight all the insanity is to be creative. Be the best creative you can. Don't think in the box. Let your imagination fly and just create, and leave. That will be the legacy that will carry you somehow into the future for someone else to build on 100 years from now. Because other than that, everything else is irrelevant. If someone if someone likes red and you like orange, and you're going, no, it has to be orange, it can't be red, or I'm blue and you're red, and all of this is really literally irrelevant. It's so irrelevant. It's scary. It's just it's so irrelevant because you're going to die, and all of these things are going to die with you, and the only thing that will possibly survive is your creativity, what you contribute to that society you're in, that someone can build upon and take it forward into the future. So yeah, this is the point I was making about my mother passing. It dawned on me that, you know, as much as I love her and I wanted her to be around forever, she's gone. That's it. She's
Yeah.
gone. You know, I am not. She's not hanging out on
You're
some
not
distant
dishonoring
cloud
anybody, but you are
somewhere.
facing the music. You're just like,
Yeah,
hey,
it's just this is the part of the reality of who we are. This is our DNA. Like it or not, you could call it a downer. You can call it whatever you want, but this is the reality. We have X amount of time, and we cannot afford to waste that time fighting among ourselves. You have to find that space or create that space for yourself where you can be the best of what you like to do. Create it, build it, make it, do your thing, contribute, and then accept when that moment comes that you have to let go. You got to let
Mhm.
go, because it's to fight among ourselves again. It's like it drives me crazy to listen to people arguing about who's right, who's wrong. My point of view is this is the way it has to be. You got to accept
Yeah.
this. It's like, dude, this is a fight for someone else. It's not for me. At this point, I'm at a point where my perspective is different. My perspective is all about making Pierre happy in his final years. If I
Bingo.
get another 50 years in front of me, I am going to be the happiest person, particularly if I can still walk and certain body parts are still working. I will be the happiest man on the freaking planet. But I'm not going to spend my next 50 years fighting fights that are not worthwhile to me. It's not it doesn't make sense. And I know a couple of friends have told me that's the fetus attitude to take. I'm like, no, it's not. This is a realistic attitude to take. You can fight the good fight if you want to fight, if you feel it's worth your fighting this stuff. But my thinking is, I'm going to be true to me. I'm going to create. This is what I love to do. And through my creations, you'll like it and you'll embrace it and take it forward, or you'll say this is trash and you'll bury it and you'll never talk about it again. And
Yeah.
that's it. And when I go,
Got burnt.
I want to have as few I wish or what if moments in my head. I want to be clear. I want to be in that state of, I'm assuming, fear of knowing that you're about to never wake up again. I'm only imagining that's probably what's going through a person's mind when they're going through that transition, that there's a level of fear and anxiety. I want that to be clear. I don't want to be thinking about any ex. I don't want to be thinking about anything. I just want to be focused on that moment of acceptance. This is the reality of the life. And I want to be able to, if I have a second or two to think, oh yes, I did this and I was really happy about that. And that's it. I don't consider it a defeatist thing, you know?
I don't either, dude. So there's something we can agree on, but it is true. I think a lot of people like to get eaten up by stuff that is out of their control.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're just, everything's bothering them, for lack of a better.
Yeah. I feel for them. I don't know how to help people in those way of thinking. Like I said, for me right now, my perspective is live and let live. You want to do you. I don't care. It's not my business. Let me do me. Stay out of my business. And if
There you
we
go.
like my business and we get along, then I welcome you. If we don't, we don't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit there to fight with you. I don't have the time because, like I said, time is limited. If you're spending the time every day waking up stressed out because you gotta go fight the good fight, you're
Yeah.
missing out on a lot.
Mhm.
This is a big ass world, and we all live in a small, I mean, a minuscule slice of what's going on.
Yep.
It's not likely we're going to be space dwellers in our lifetime. We don't have the technology for that. But that said, our planet is huge. There's no way you're going to cover this entire planet. Even if you were wealthy and capable of traveling everywhere, there are parts of it you will never get to. There is just that much on
Yeah.
our little tiny planet alone. So to spend the time being unhappy in your little tiny thing that you occupy is insanity. It's insanity. You
It
should be
really
out
is.
there. Yeah, you should be out there looking to expand that space and see what potentials, what lies out there that you can do, what other things are accessible to you, whether they're limited or whatever. But you should be looking at the bigger picture. And my concern, not my concern, but my thing is watching people who are constantly micro looking at the world in their little bubble, and everyone has to wear the same uniform or else. And my thinking is, you know, that's old, that's tired. I don't know
Yeah.
where it's going to take you. Life is evolving. There's nothing about what we are that's not changing. When I lived in New York, there's a place called the Brooklyn Museum,
Oh,
and
sweet.
looking at, you live in New York?
I know. But I've seen. I've always wondered about the different museums and other events in there. But
Yeah,
uh,
at
I
the
have had friends that have lived there, and same kind of deal as you, where they would have to figure out other places to live because the rent and
the
cost of
past.
living is so
It's
vast.
gotten insane. But the reason I bring up the museum, they have a floor, one of the top floors where they have old furniture from the turn of the century, the early 1900s.
Jeez.
Look at and you look at the furniture, and they're tiny. They look like dollhouse furniture. And it dawned on me, these were real people using this furniture, and we're talking about
At one point, yeah.
about 100 years ago. This is how we've evolved. We've become so much bigger that this stuff looks like it was made for doll houses. And my thinking is, 100 years from now, they're going to look at us and everything that we have, and it's weird.
It
It's not,
really is.
as much as we want to think our cell phone is the bomb because it has a computer in it. I can only imagine what they're going to have in 100 years, that they're going to look at a cell phone and go, what the hell? They walked around with this thing in their pocket, you know?
This
So,
damn thing captured everything and no one knew.
yeah,
The
so it's like,
irony.
knowing this is how we're evolving, the fact that you're fighting fighting over an idea or something that you think needs to be permanent or a certain way makes almost zero sense, because things are going to evolve the way they need to evolve on this planet, whether you're part of
Forcing
it or not.
change just
Yeah.
messes with everything.
What's his name? He said it best in Jurassic Park. Nature, was it nature will always find a way?
Yeah,
And
Jeff Goldblum. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, he's
Science
right.
will lie to you.
Yeah,
So,
he's so right. It's like we can do what we can try to manipulate and try to control it as much as we can, but for the reality is, this thing is bigger than us, and it will evolve the way it wants to evolve. And whether you like it or not, it's going to go into its future. It's going to conclude the way it needs to conclude. Whether a meteor hits the planet and ends all life here, or we evolve into something thin with bug eyes and skinny fingers, and it will evolve. We will have implants, maybe. Whatever we are now, and we're fighting to keep, will become irrelevant 100 years from now.
Uh-huh.
They're going to look back at
Yeah.
us. Well, these folks were crazy. So again, my advice, and I guess this is to tie everything with a bow, is anyone graduating right now, find a career that brings you joy, find something to do that you enjoy, be the best at it, be creative, and grow it, and hopefully someone will pick it up and take it into the future for you. Other than that, I think to sit down to try to figure out the small fights and arguing with each other unnecessarily, pick and choose the battles you need to fight. You don't need to fight every battle. You need to just figure out how to live a happy life and be a decent person. That's all that's important.
Don't get eaten up by just stuff that's so out of reach. Like, we're not saying surrender, and we're also not saying don't speak your mind, but it is true. A lot of people get caught up in everything. It's like, whoa, you still need a filter. Like, when you know who shall not be named, got elected, my mother was just like endlessly like wanted to watch CNN nonstop. I'm like, that is as if that man is in this room with us right now. Why do you want to bring all these unsolvable issues? Why not?
It's what it is. You got to just accept it and move on.
I would look for like 3 stories on like the top of Google News, and then move on with the day and try to avoid any awful person.
Exactly.
And now, I'm not saying I'm not gonna stand my ground if I see someone getting mugged at like a pharmacy, but it was just one of those, like, a lot of people when I just dealt with insomnia, and after much support and everything, I finally got my world back together. But anyone else would have probably just kept collapsing, kept having unstable, days where they're not getting much of anything done and falling on hard times. And it's one of those things, you gotta keep going. You gotta have the consistent schedule every day. Otherwise, you'll just keep driving yourself crazy in your own home.
Exactly.
And you sound like you've done a good job of just filtering out the bullshit. Like, when
I'm trying. I can't say I've done a good job.
But you did have a good thing in your previous interviews where you were saying, vent out the toxic thoughts. We all have toxic thoughts that our brain likes to reiterate, and it's like, God, where did that come from?
Totally. But I try my best, if anything, to always check myself, to always step back from everything that's put in front of me, to ask myself if it's making sense for me, and is this something that's important enough to me that I need to voice an opinion on, or if this is one of those things that I gotta just let go and move on. Because like I said, time is of essence. Now,
it's so of essence.
It's become like my mom, again, I hate to keep bringing her up, but
hey, she's the number one person in your life, or was at one point.
Situation basically nailed it for me. It made me realize I cannot afford to waste time. Time is very valuable to me. And if I'm not doing something that I'm enjoying or having fun at that moment, I just shouldn't be doing it. And I know, like I said, I know with work, there are times you have to do things that you don't want to do because you got to earn a check, and you got bills to pay, and you got responsibilities. But my thinking is, even in those moments, try to figure out how to make what is miserable to you pleasurable. Everything
love
has
it. I love this.
Yeah, everything.
See, this is what we're talking about, gang.
And it's like, figure out how to make that negative a positive for yourself for that moment, so that you can get through it. because if everything just stays in that space, you're never going to be happy. And I think happiness is a big part of this stuff of
Mm-hmm.
life. If you're not enjoying it, and going back to my favorite phrase, having fun, it's like, what's the point? And going on that, I want to bring this full circle to this stuff. This
Lift
stuff.
up.
These books. I talking about
These are
having
some great
fun.
books. So Pierre was beyond courteous to actually send these in the mail, and it's like, again, you got multiple different uh crossword puzzles, but you have chosen a different style with each one, and in each one you also divide them each by sections. I mean, for the graduation college one, you had one which were number combos, as well as ones that were entertainment guesses, as well as a black and white theme
Yeah,
puzzle,
one of the things
an anime one. But man,
yeah, when I started this project, this was 2 years
give
ago.
yourself an applause. That's
Oh, thank you, thank you.
that's some good
'Cause
stuff.
I feel really proud about these books.
Because
At the
it's you, baby.
Yeah, I was on YouTube and I saw people talking about doing doing stuff if on Amazon and stuff, and I was curious. And as I started looking into it, I realized this stuff is kind of stuff I used to play with when I was a kid. So when I did the very first book that I put together, it was like I noticed a handful of people would buy it from time to time, and as I watched more and more videos and became familiar with this stuff, I rediscovered coloring books because I'm a big collector of coloring books. Started creating coloring books, and then that led me down the path of word searches.
Sweet.
And the moment I rediscovered word searches, in my mind I started going, well, how can I put a twist on this? And I
Sweet.
started doing numbers, and I go, all right, there's a ton of word searches and number books out there. They're all black and white. They're all simple
So many
things. Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, you pick a topic, and there's probably 1,000 books with the same words inside of them. And I thought, well, numbers are infinite. The only limit is the number of numbers I can put on a page. Other than that, I can create endless number of number books, and no two books will ever be the same because there's so many numbers. So I started
Yep.
using numbers, and I realized after reading a couple of articles online about this, numbers are actually more challenging because unlike words, there's no way for you to have a memory of the numbers.
It's not all backed up, like
Right.
your
I
ATM
mean,
code.
exactly. It's like, for example, if you were looking up the word crayon, you kind of know what the word crayon looks like. So when you're looking for it, you know how to look for it.
But this is what's been a delight, my dude, just talking with you, just because like you're good at just kind of talking about the stuff that just eats all of us up in a cerebral kind of way, instead of
Exactly.
it only makes
So,
sense to this kind of crowd, but might not make sense to this kind of person.
yeah.
We
So,
all
yeah,
have thought it, even if we didn't know how to illustrate it in
put
words.
it together.
But
Yeah.
fortunately, you as an artist, you just got to write this out. You got to.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, so I did these numbers, and suddenly it started dawning on me, why aren't people doing graphics in these puzzles?
Good
And
question.
I
It's like
went,
the oldest trick in the book.
yeah, I went online and on Amazon, because Amazon is where I'm selling a lot of these books, and I think I've found so far only 4 people attempted to put graphic images into these searches, and I'm like, why aren't they doing it? And I tried to do one, realize it takes a lot of work. It's
Yes,
not
it does.
simply, you can't generate a program to put these graphics
Nope.
together. You have to edit the graphic. You have to make sure they reduce properly, they're
Where to
clear.
frame
And
it with
yeah,
the
and you have to make
page.
sure it works.
Just like when
Because
you're putting up, when you're framing something in a poster, you got to make sure it's not
it's not good,
overlapping, because then
but
the images
more
will be bigger.
exactly, but more importantly, you have to make sure the puzzle works. Nothing
Yes.
more frustrating than looking for something that's not in the puzzle.
It can't be
So
solved.
yeah, so I
Ugh.
recently figured out how to incorporate graphics into these puzzles. And I could give you a preview. I have these things coming up. I don't know if you can see it.
The chess.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Sweet.
And I'm doing dice, and I'm doing a bunch of other things, graphics now for search, because I've figured out more or less how to put these elements into these puzzles to make them work and make them readable, which is really important. So I'm having the time of my life doing these. And, I don't know how long I'll continue to do this. I'll do it until I'm no longer enjoying it. And at that
Bingo.
point, I'm sure something else will come along, and I will that easily swerve into whatever else comes along that is entertaining to me. But in the meantime, I'm having fun doing this. I'm creating these books. I have like a dozen of them on Amazon
For
available.
those who wonder, PB Art Creations is on Amazon,
Thank you. Yeah,
and we will link that in the episode. But it's I'm just proud of you, Perry, because I see so many other talents who, once they get a gig and once that fades away, like I would see people who were like used to be involved with Howard Stern, and they were so angry at they had loved their time there, and then it had ended all just blown up in their face. And same kind of deal. They kind of just went into depression. It's just like, no,
you can't. You can't.
you can't act like it's a car wreck and you're paralyzed. Don't do that.
I would say with me, when it ended with me on Conan, I would say for the first 6 months, maybe less, there was that moment of, what did I do? Why did they let me go? What's going on here? Why,
What the hell?
But after that moment in time, all I remember was I dived into life drawing at the time, and suddenly everything else didn't matter anymore, because I found my next thing. It wasn't a paying gig, but it was life drawing, and I was drawing all these beautiful models, and I was having the time of my life. And I think you saw it on Facebook. Suddenly,
Yes.
I was posting pictures of all these incredible women that I was drawing, and my headspace went into a whole nother thing. And I think that's the thing. I
I still have T-shirts from my old job, and these are from awful jobs I worked. So it's just so funny. You always feel a sense of loyalty, even though they did you wrong. So it's just like,
but
right.
no, it's a loyalty that has faded, because just like the ex-girlfriends that I don't lose sleep over, I don't lose sleep over the job. It was a fun time in my life, and I really appreciate the opportunities they gave me, but it's over, and that's part of history. There are so many other things that have occurred in those years since, and those are the things I'm embracing. And like right now, going back to my books, those are what are important to me at the moment. These books, creating these books, this is what I sleep on, dream on. I am, full time creating my books. I'm like, that's all that's important to me at the moment. And like I said, at some point, I'm sure I might get bored of this, and I will find that next thing, and I will always be creating, and I want to always have that career where no matter what
Don't
age.
wait on the phone to ring for something that's not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to always be creating, and I always want to have fun with what I'm doing. And I don't want that to be dictated by anyone or anything. I don't want
Bingo.
anyone or anything limiting my fun in life. I want that to always be under my control. It's always got to be me. I got to decide what I'm going to be doing. I need to decide how I'm going to be doing it. And, if it's not that way, then I'm not doing it, because, it's all about fun now.
Yep. You only get one life to make it fun too.
Yeah, that's so true. It's all about fun now.
And but before we let you go, you've already been beyond gracious with your time. One thing I'm noticing just with any kind of gig, any kind of profession, is people don't give themselves enough breathing space. How would you say you have handled just giving yourself just time for you in between what you're going to accomplish in your day?
Uh,
You've already hit
in
upon just so much, just what
the only
you
way
don't
I can
like and making that work for you and all that. Sorry.
answer that question, I can only give you an answer that applies to me. And it goes back to what I mentioned to you earlier. I love creating. So for me, creating is my breathing space. If I'm not creating, I will lose my mind. If I sit in front of the TV for half an hour, it has to be a damn good reason I'm sitting in front of the TV for half an hour. I mean, to
Nice.
watch Star Wars, I love that movie. I sat through the 2 hours I watched it. I watched The Empire Strike Back, but I had to get up to go work on my book because as much as I love those three movies, and by the way, side point, I watched one of your previous podcasts. You had someone on and you guys were talking about Star Wars. I just want to set the record straight. There were only 3 Star Wars movies. I'm sorry. There were 3 Star Wars movies.
Plus the
There were
Mandalorian.
3 additional movies that were made by Lucas as a passion thing because he just created his, what do you call it, his special effects company, and he wanted to take that out for a ride. So he created those additional 3 movies. But that said, there's only 3 Star Wars movies. Star Wars began and ended with 3. There's nothing else. I don't know what Disney bought and they're airing, but those are not Star Wars. There's only 3 Star
Mondo
Wars.
is a whole different
It's
universe, is what you're
ended.
saying.
So, so I leave it at that. Where were we before I brought
I
that
don't
up?
know.
Oh, you were asking about how do I deal with the time?
Right. How do you make
my-
time for
my
yourself? Give
time for
yourself,
myself.
because
The
I see
time
this
for
at every
myself
job I
is
work.
always spent in creativity, so that when I'm not being creative is when I'm on the other side of that question. Making time for myself is me being creative. Creativity is not a job. It's not a project. It's not something I do to keep myself busy. That's who I am. It defines everything about me. If that makes me boring or odd, so be it. But that's who I am. So when you ask that question, for me, how do I find time for myself? I find time for myself through my creativity. When I'm on the other side of that question, of that window or that question, that's when that question becomes relevant. When I'm sitting around doing nothing, then you could ask that question, well, how do you find time for yourself? And I find time for myself through creativity. I will get up and start figuring out how to be creative, hopefully. That's how I find time for myself.
So you let it evolve naturally in many ways instead of just,
Yeah, exactly.
it got away from me, or oh, I don't have time for this or that, or I only have time to work, or I only have time to, joke
Exactly.
around.
I mean, yeah, I can't tell you the number. There are times where I wake up and I just not motivated, and I feel I need to just veg out, and I can't rub 2 sticks together to start a fire. And I hate those moments, but when I find something that clicks in my head, or I put that pen on paper and that line starts screaming at me, that's when the fire starts, and I find that drive and everything starts clicking, and that's how I find that time and myself.
I love that. Anyone else who I've asked that, they either didn't have an answer or they're just like, I don't know, I'm stressed. And you don't have time to stress. So
No,
it's
I don't
great.
have time to stress. There was a time when I used to have panic attacks and stress out,
Ah, who wants that? Yeah.
and yeah, I after dealing with that and understanding what the doctors are telling me, again, it all comes down to the fight that you need to fight. I'm at that point where I'm trying my best to not waste my time. fighting fights that are not worth fighting. It's all about being creative and having fun and enjoying the moment.
We've
I
said
talking
it
with
again.
you right now. I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to express thoughts that are running in my head. I'm being cautious not to say anything that's going to create unnecessary waves.
Yeah, and I said it to you straight up before. This is about you. We're not
but
talking about just all the other people who
yeah,
we worked with.
but at the same time, I'm having fun talking with you and expressing what's going on in my head to my best ability. And that's it. And once we're done, I'm going to probably go back to the books and sit down and because while we're talking, I've already some ideas are rolling in my head that I'm thinking I need to put on paper real quick to start fleshing it.
Before it
And,
escapes.
yeah, and in talking to you, we were talking about conventions earlier, and that reminds me next month is Comic-Con. I need to follow up on that because I really want to see if I could attend the convention this year. So I need to see what I need to do to make that a possibility. So my mind is
It's game time.
it's putting there's a bunch of pieces that I'm looking at that I need to move around and figure out and stuff. And it's like I don't have time to be stressed. I just have time to put all this stuff together and figure out how to enjoy life. Are you going to Comic-Con?
I hope to in the future. I just got a new car. I got, but much like anyone, I'm finding other ways to get out of my shell. Just in a post-COVID world, I'm going to be with this new car. I will be trying to make it a priority to travel around more, state to state, go to just different expos, and just meet other great minds. So
go to local.
Hopefully I can meet you at one of those.
Oh, definitely, man. And go to your local conventions. Support the people putting those together.
And that's why I'm trying to travel around, my dude, because like I was going to a few different ones in Texas, and I was just getting annoyed by the lack of care by the event holders, how some of the celebs were leaving their panels early. It's like, or they were VIP lines. So I'm like, so in other words, you're just standing there for 1 to 3 hours, but you're not interacting. I hated it.
Not to go on a tangent, but I'm going to give you a recliner of rage. But
here we go.
Yeah, when we used to do those, I came up with one that was outright rejected because it delved into the politics of celebrity. Going along what you just talked about, it drives me crazy with celebrities and people from that world coming into our space. And I said very clearly, our space, because I've been going to conventions a long time. I met my first girlfriend at a freaking comic convention.
Hey, there we go.
Comic-Con.
One good thing came out of it.
Before Comic-Con was on anyone's radar, I have my old badge. I was going to Comic-Con. Since you're not familiar with San Diego, I try to describe it. The convention center has a basement, a parking lot underneath it. And back in the day, when Comic-Con was for us, I was able to drive up to the convention day of and park in the basement of the convention center and go upstairs and enjoy the convention. But over time, that changed, and I had to start parking at the lot next door to the convention center because the convention center parking lot was full.
Jeez. I have family in San Francisco, and it's way easier parking there. It's just the hills and everything that can probably goof up your car. But man, I can't imagine the garages are full.
There was a hotel right next to called the Gaslight, literally next door to the convention center. That's where I always got my room booked. I can book it. I can actually drive in on Thursday and get the room booked because I didn't know it. No need for advance because that was when we went to the convention. We were able to go day of, get our room booked for the weekend, drive under the lot, the building. But over time, it evolved and it got bigger and bigger. And what I noticed is that a lot more people are going to the convention who shouldn't be there, quite honestly. And
Ah,
I call out celebrities. I'm sorry. A lot of them should not be at our convention. They don't belong there. It's a money grab. They're simply there to take money out of our pockets. They do not belong there. And it drives me crazy that the fans have embraced celebrity in that manner and allowed themselves to be disrespected on that level. Because I can't tell you the number of times I've heard people say stuff. It's one thing about you and me. Like I was saying earlier, we're ragging on each other at the convention.
mhm.
Someone does a goofy or something. But it's another thing when one of these celebrities start ragging on us because they mean it with venom. And it drives me crazy that these folks are pushing us out of our space and dictating now, it's starting to dictate our space to us. It's like having someone come into your house and put their foot up on your freaking coffee table,
Yeah,
take your remote control and tell you this is what you're going to watch in your own house.
right. And
Comic
no
Comic
choice.
Con, yeah, I get it. I know Comic Con is a thing that these guys created to make money and it grew and they want to make as much money as they can and stuff. But somewhere along the line, they lost perspective on what this thing is about. In your freaking name, it says Comic Con. The fact that you have this huge hall and less than a third, I mean, literally less than a third,
Less than a
has
third, yeah.
comics in it, should tell you there is something fundamentally wrong with what you're doing at this point. And yeah, so you're talking about celebrities coming in, they're occupying space, and it's driving me nuts. And I've spoken with friends about this, and they told me chill out on this, and I'm like,
And you're like, I'm the
yeah,
recliner rage. It's
I
my
wanted to
job to
do a
point
kind of
out.
rage about that at one time, but it was this for obvious reason. But but on the brighter side of all of this, there is a place where I think celebrity does work, and that's Dragon Con in Atlanta.
I've heard
If
nothing but great things, especially Frank. Do you know Frank Conniff of Mr. Science Theater? TV's
Not
Frank.
offhand, no, not offhand.
Okay. Yeah, no. So he's TV's Frank on that show, but he's also gone on to be a movie riffer and write for shows like Drew Carey and Invader Zim and
Oh, cool.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But yeah, no. Every comedian and talent I know who's gone to Dragon Con has pretty much always had a great time there. So that's
Dra-
awesome that you're going to be part of that
Dragon
magic.
Con, Dragon Con is to us what Atlantic City or Vegas is to gamblers.
Oh, jeez.
Dragon Con, forget Comic Con. If you have to do one or the other, Dragon Con, hands down, not even a second thought about it. Head out to Atlanta. You're going to have the best freaking time of your life because there, celebrities who attend Dragon Con gotta love the fans. They are not
I
there
would
for
hope.
grabbing a fast buck because it's an environment that is heavy cosplay and it's very clear what you're there for, to have fun and mingle. And if you're simply there to make a fast buck off of the fans, you're going to be miserable because it's not going to work for you. That's the only environment where I've seen celebrities or encountered celebrities, and they're interacting with the fans, and it's not about just getting money. I remember
Hmm.
one year
They're
I
not
went out.
pressuring you, sign
Yeah,
this just
I,
so I
I
can go home.
exactly. There was one year I went out there. There was the Hard Rock Cafe at night. A group of us, we went in there and we started dancing on the dance floor. And next thing I knew, members from the cast of that TV show, that sci-fi show, Eureka,
Oh,
the
lovely.
main
Yeah.
guy and two of the women and one other guy, I don't remember his face. They were right there on the dance floor dancing with us. This is Dragon Con. This is what Dragon Con is about. Another year, a friend of mine I was with, told me he's going to this party, and we went up to the room, and it turned out it was people from Star Trek, the Voyager, and the Next Generation, and a couple of other celebrities were in a room, and they were partying and stuff, and they had a few fans in there mingling and partying. This is DragonCon. DragonCon is the place where celebrities go to get out of celebrity. Comic-Con and all these other places is where they go for quick cash grabs. But if you want to have fun and really enjoy the moment and be who you are and nerd out, DragonCon, hands down. That's not a promotion. They didn't pay me. I wish they would, because I would be able to afford to go out there again. That's the convention. That's the convention, hands down. DragonCon is the place. If you're into nerdism and you love sci-fi and you love fantasy and you love everything, DragonCon, hands down, no question. It's like hammer on the table. It's over. You could debate it all you want. DragonCon is it.
Good. Love it, love it, love it. Now, and you've been fortunate enough to also go to other places like the Anime Con in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
For about 5 years now. Nice.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun, but they're not DragonCon. They're not. I'm sorry that you can't compete. None of these conventions can compete to DragonCon. I mean, DragonCon is a different type of beast. I mean, once you go once, you understand. It's unlike anything you've ever been to. It's a weekend that you will not forget.
Lovely.
Well, I will say I had a great time, man. This was a fun interview.
Absolutely. And you gave kind of a voice to just the underdogs, the ones who are still staying relevant in different areas, different entertainment avenues, and the whole no such thing as quit. Like you determine your day-to-day existence. It was very engaging.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my final word to your listeners. Is have fun doing what you do. Just be the best at it. Don't sweat the small stuff. You know, stay true to who you are and enjoy life. Don't fight the battles that don't need to be fought.
There you go.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up